Hey folks, it's Jeremy, the host of Blammo. Thanks so much for listening. This is a preview of one of our exclusive shows on Patreon. These are member-supported shows, meaning they only happen because of our incredible members and community. So check out a preview of the episode, and if you like it, consider joining us on Patreon at patreon.com/Blammo, where we have tons of exclusive Blammo episodes, shows, our amazing Slack group, and we're adding new things for members all the time. If not, no worries, we still love you, and we literally have hundreds of episodes of Blammo all free for you to dive into. Thanks so much.
Hey, Derek.
Hey, Peter.
How you doing?
Doing pretty well. How about you?
I'm well. I am ready for spring.
Same here.
Well, actually, I'm going to miss the heavy coats, but I am ready for longer days.
It's a little bit unfair for us to talk about spring because the Bay Area is basically perpetually spring weather.
Right.
It's never really winter.
Right.
We get like summer for 8 days.
Right.
But it's basically one long spring. But yes, generally speaking, I am ready for spring.
Yeah. You had a very interesting response to one of your tweets from the Prime Minister of New Zealand.
Yeah, he was at some like cookout or something. And I don't really know anything about New Zealand culture, although I knew someone, an exchange student from New Zealand when I was in college, but other than that, I don't know anything about the country. But apparently they have something like Lamb Day or something. I know in
Australia, Lamb Day is a big thing, so that New Zealand probably has the same thing going on.
Maybe something like that.
Oh, it's a huge thing.
So the Prime Minister wore a T-shirt that said something like Lamb Day over his suit jacket, which is actually understandable because if you arrived at the event,
you're not going to undress
in your
right there.
suit, you have a suit and tie jacket. It is kind of funny to me that he instead of taking off his suit jacket and putting the shirt over your dress shirt and your tie, which is what I think would be the more normal thing to do, he just slipped the T-shirt over his suit jacket, his entire thing. And I thought it just looked funny. And I just said, are you wearing a T-shirt over your suit jacket? And then that thing went I don't know, it got like a bunch of likes and retweets and a bunch of comments and started taking on a life of its own. And then New Zealand press picked it up. And I saw a bunch of newspapers and magazines in New Zealand talking about my tweet. And then the next day, the Prime Minister filmed a video in response to my tweet and saying, he made light of it. He said, I've been accused of committing a fashion crime. And in the video, he's wearing another T-shirt. Although this T-shirt was really long. I just thought it looked really funny on him. Anyway, so he ended up auctioning off the T-shirt on, I think it's like a New Zealand version of eBay.
Oh, okay.
It's called Trade Me, I believe. And the last time I checked, the price was around $1,700 or so. By the time this pod airs, the auction will be done. But he auctioned off the T-shirt, and the proceeds go to benefit New Zealand children in poverty.
Oh,
which I thought was a very nice way of handling it.
Yeah.
I don't really know anything about New Zealand politics. Apparently, a bunch of people based in New Zealand were chiming in about how much they hate him, and I don't know anything about this person. But I thought that was
strictly from an aesthetics point of view.
Aesthetically, I thought it was funny. But it is, thought it was nice that he auctioned off. And in fact, I think if I ever make a comment about a famous person, they should auction off that item.
I wonder if Ted Cruz is going to auction off his boots.
Yeah.
That would be.
I can't imagine it fetching a crazy amount of money, but he signed it. So, if Matt Gaetz signed.
Well, that's worth something.
Matt Gaetz signed his pants or whatever in auction. I think some people would bid on it.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then give the proceeds to charity.
Yeah, whatever. Even if you only raise $200-$300, that's something. And you as a senator or whatever probably make enough money to go buy new pants.
Yeah.
Get them from No Man Walks Alone, The Armory, all the companies that we talk about.
And charge it to the people.
Yeah. Yes, do that. So then you end up getting, you get in trouble and then end up getting kicked out. That would be ideal. But yeah.
Well, that's a happy ending to that skirmish.
Yeah, I thought it was funny that the Prime Minister of New Zealand would ever respond to me because I'm basically a nobody. I thought that was hilarious. So
Well, I'm liking how it ended.
Yeah.
Well, getting into spring, there is some really nice stuff coming out. And I'm going to admit that when it comes to rain, I'm a bit overboard when it comes to preparing for the 10 times it rains in San Francisco.
Yeah. And when I shop for rain jackets, I have in my head the rationale and the logic of why this is logically necessary. But realistically, when it rains, I just sit until the rain subsides.
Right.
And then I get into an Uber. So
why would I even go out in it?
I barely even touch any water. Although recently it was pouring and I wanted to get out of my house. I wanted to go get some groceries and I waited for the rain to subside. And according to the weather report, it was going to be clear skies from, this period to that period. And I was like, oh, this is my break. I can go grab groceries. So I went out in not rain gear.
Because the rain forecast is never wrong.
Yeah. So I went out and then when I left the grocery store, it was pouring. And then I walked home in a light jacket and, what I was wearing at the time. And it made me think how ridiculous it is. My legs end up getting soaked. It made me think how ridiculous it is that so much modern rain gear is mid-thigh length.
I know. It's ridiculous.
I used to, on Styleform, I used to see old members say oh, this doesn't make sense because, it doesn't even protect you. And I would just think oh, it's just another old guy complaint.
Right. I remember Will saying that the most silly thing are short trench coats.
Yeah. I mean, I would just think oh, okay, whatever. I mean, I've never been into that whole short trench coat thing, but it just seemed like an old man rant. But now I'm fully on board. It just doesn't make any sense.
No.
You're paying, because those things aren't even cheap, a designer mid-thigh trench coat.
Oh, you're looking at $2,000 plus.
Yeah. I mean, even on a budget, it's $500. And then when you're walking around, your legs are soaked. So what do you use for rain gear?
Well, I have a full stick umbrella.
I have so many of those. There was a period where I was so into full stick umbrellas. Because that's the
only one you buy.
Yeah. So a full stick umbrella, for those that don't know, is if you just go out and buy an umbrella at Bloomingdale's or wherever, often those are telescopic umbrellas. But if you happen to buy one that's a little bit longer, it's usually pieced together from metal, and then you have a wood handle. But a full stick umbrella is one single continuous unbroken stick. My understanding is that Francesco Maglia is supposedly the world supplier for all of the sticks.
Yeah.
And they sell the sticks to Tallarico and, all of these other companies that then use them to make umbrellas. I have an embarrassing number of full stick umbrellas.
Really? Okay, I'm curious now.
I don't even know the number. But they are
you have that many? 5.
I don't know the number, but it's definitely 5 would be easy. I don't know the number, but it's a ridiculous amount. They make you feel like a gentleman, tip of the hat gentleman.
Yeah, man. And that's such a shame because I hear what you're saying. And so whenever I carry it, I make sure to carry it from the middle. Because if I walk with it, then that's who is this guy? And why is he not wearing spats and a top hat?
Yeah.
I have to carry those in the middle if I'm doing anything but holding them in the rain.
I do think they're very beautiful.
Oh, they're amazing.
Yeah, I do think they're beautiful. The ones that I like are from Mario Tallarico, which I don't know if it's still this, but at least 15 years ago, it was an uncle and nephew team, both named Mario Tallarico, weirdly. But they worked as a team in the Spanish quarters of Naples, making these beautiful umbrellas. And they would make them out of all these different materials. The really rare ones would have silk canopies.
They can go into the thousands.
Those are super expensive. And there used to be a guy in New York, I want to say Gilbert something, but he was the only guy in New York that knew how to repair silk canopies. And he passed away. So there's this whole industry of people who make single stick umbrellas, sometimes using unusual materials. That is kind of disappearing. So not to encourage wasteful consumption, but I you
don't have to buy 5.
You don't have to buy 5. But if you do want them, they are kind of disappearing. And Fox umbrellas, Brig, James Smith and Sons, Francesco Maglia, Mario Tallarico, And there's a couple of Parisian and one more Italian maker whose name I can't remember at the moment.
Francesco Maglia, you can have so many options and you can make it very personalized. I had the chance to visit him in Milan in his shop, and I had one made right then and there.
Wow.
It was really cool to watch the process. Francesco's young. He can't be more than 40. He's in his 30s, probably early 30s. And he learned the trade from his father and from many generations. And I had one made.
Wait, that must be the new Francesco Maglia, because the Francesco Maglia 15 years ago was like an old dude.
Yeah, he passed it to his grandson.
Oh, okay.
Also named Francesco.
Wow. Okay.
And that's generally the case. In Italy culture, you are generally named after your grandfather. It skips a generation.
Okay.
But you're generally, I was almost Vito.
That's a very cool name.
It is a very cool name. I wish I was Vito.
That's a very, very cool name.
But instead I was named after my grandfather's brother who died at sea.
That's also, Peter's a great name, but Vito's like.
Can you imagine?
That's a very, very cool name.
Vito Zotolo.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
But no Vito for me, unfortunately. But anyway, I went there and I picked Sicilian wood, Ginestra, and a really nice, but pretty basic polyester, because he did recommend polyester because silk, once it gets wet, and it gets wet very easily, getting silk is more for looks than for actual practicality. So I chose a really nice one, and it takes about 2-ish hours, 3 hours to make from start to finish. But it's a really interesting process. I took tons of pictures and video, and it was really nice to see how everything is still hand done. Machines are used, but they're hand actuated machines. And you can choose everything from the metal that is used at the edges, at the tips, to wrap around the button and the whole 9 yards. It's a very interesting process. If you're in Milan, you can make an appointment and you can stop there. You can put in your order and it'll probably be done by the end of the day.
Yeah. The one that I actually use the most and I find the most convenient, it's not as beautiful as the single stick umbrellas. To me, those are really beautiful. But Ortel, they make telescopic umbrellas that they have like slightly nicer wood handles than what you get at like your drugstore or whatever. But they are telescopic umbrellas. They're not the one push button. Those you have to like open it by hand. But I think it looks a little bit nicer. The wood's a little bit nicer.
Francesco Maglia also makes telescopic ones as well.
Right.
I travel with that. So I just put that in my travel bag as opposed to a full stick umbrella.
Right.
And that's great for traveling.
Yeah. There's another company called Davik Umbrella. It's a little bit more modern, but I think they have like a lifetime guarantee.
Oh, wow.
I think their whole thing is like if you lose the umbrella, you can end up getting replaced for some small fee. Those are also a much more practical option. And then a really practical option, which is something that I don't see from many companies, is Gust Busters.
I haven't even heard of that.
Which is not at all a cool, sexy, artisanal company, very mass produced, but they have a wind flap at the top of the umbrella.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those so that the air can escape.
Yes. And I found that to be really useful in New York.
In gusty situations. Yeah.
So if you live in Chicago or New York and you get those corridors where like wind is ripping through, a lot of those traditional umbrellas, like, there's no wind flaps. So you're just like holding on for dear life.
And then it'll go inside out.
Yes.
And then it's either broken or you have to get it repaired.
Right. So Gust Busters, those are pretty cheap and they have that wind flap that I think is just really useful. Davik umbrellas might also have that, but those are a little bit more practical, I suppose.
What about raincoats? Have you got any raincoats or trench coats?
My favorite raincoat, and it's no longer made. I hate recommending things that are no longer made, but you can probably I sometimes see it pop up on eBay.
Oh, okay.
And Grailed, is Captain Sunshine's cold weather parka.
Oh,
which is
that's
modeled
massive.
Yeah, it's modeled after something that British troops wore, I believe in the Second World War. And it's just a long green hooded parka. I think it works better over casual wear. It's not something that you necessarily wear over tailored clothing. It's like a military parka. But the other ones on my list are Coherence's Al 2 trench coat.
Oh yeah, that's a nice one.
I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And then I saw a photo of Chase Winfrey in, I believe, a Korean
yeah, that's a Korean trench coat.
Mm-hmm. It looked really good
from
on him.
American trench coat from the Korean War.
Yeah. Yes, an American trench coat from the Korean War, but military issued.
Yes.
It looked really good on him. I'm a little bit worried about like buying that online because I like to try it on in person. I don't know anyone locally who sells it.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any more Army Navy surplus stores. There used to be one in Berkeley, just off of Shattuck, years ago, but it's been gone for a long time.
Yeah. There's a bunch of traditional shops that also sell good raincoats. Grenfell, Cordings. Macintosh has such like a huge line that I think you have to like figure out what you want. I think they have a model called the Dunkfeld, which is a single-breasted Mac, and I find that single-breasted Macs are easy to wear with casual wear.
Yeah.
Whereas a trench coat, I think, looks a little bit more at home with tailored clothing. The problem with Macintosh, I find it fine, but it's a rubberized fabric, so some people say that it doesn't breathe as well. I mean, that's true.
It doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just wearing like it's just rubber, right?
Yeah, even though they have grommets. I mean, I have a Barber that is waxed, and then I have the Ralph Lauren. They call it the oilcloth, which is very similar, and it does not breathe very well. So it's great if it's cold and rainy.
Yes,
which is springtime. But once you get into the summer months, and we can't really complain because it barely breaks 80 here in the Bay Area.
Right.
And when it does, we complain about that too.
Right.
But for the springtime, did I show you the oilcloth jacket? I think.
Yeah.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
It's great though. It's so good. I waited so long for that to go on sale. And when it finally did, I was like, yes. And now it's almost completely sold out. I think they have an extra large. And it runs relatively large, which is great because I think it looks good oversized. I took it out for a spin and it actually did rain on the motorcycle. Was not expecting it to, but I wore it just in case. And there I am on the motorcycle saying, yes, I am wearing this to its practical means.
Yeah.
And it was really good at shedding water.
Yeah, I think if you're doing real kind of like heavy activity, if you're like walking around all the time and the temperature is not super cold, those things are not as practical because you'll start to overheat and then you'll sweat, which is not great. So I think if you can try to find like Ventile, which is a little bit more breathable, or even like a cotton gabardine or something, that's going to be a lot more practical. Burberry's still good for trench coats, although like with many of these heritage lines, they're like, it's just a massive line. So you have to know what to buy. They have, I believe it's called the Westminster, and they have some other heritage models. Names escapes me, but it's like, another one of these like super British kind of words. But you want to buy the heritage models, which is like what Burberry has kept as like their made in England classic trench coat. Although then you're paying for the Burberry name. To me, if I was on the market right now for a trench coat, I would go for Coherence because I think they make really cool stuff.
Or you can buy Burberry on eBay.
Right.
They've been around for so long. There's so many Burberry jackets on eBay and in thrift stores. I have one that was made in the 90s, made in Italy, not in England, but that was during the time, and you've seen that. That's the one where it was almost a brushed polyester.
Yeah.
That's a nice one. I got one from Todd Snyder that is just out during the spring, and it's 100% polyester, completely unlined, and it's great when it gets warm because it's so light. The only thing you have to be aware of with polyester jackets, trench coats in particular, is with all of that polyester, you can get static. And so a good way to keep that from happening is getting it wet. So in the rain, you don't really notice it, because polyester doesn't have any moisture. It can't absorb, which is why it's great for rain. But because it can't absorb any moisture, it tends to get staticky very easily. So a quick spray down will get rid of that, and that will avoid that. But if you're walking around in a polyester coat and you notice that your trousers, your pants, your wool pants in particular, start to get a little sticky and start to grab onto the trench coat, it's because of that jacket. So it's just something to be aware of. But in a downpour, you won't have to worry too much about that.
What do you do for rain boots?
For rain boots, I have a couple of boots from Wesco that are essentially rain boots. They're not true rain boots because they're not Gore-Tex lined. But I do have some Gore-Tex boots, but they're more for work. Because when I'm out in the rain, I'm not in the rain long enough, except when I'm working. That would necessitate having proper rain boots. Yeah. The Wescos that I have, the leather is so thick and it's stitched down, so water won't really get in very easily. It will eventually.
Right.
But essentially they perform as rain boots.
Right. There are a couple of those like traditional welt systems, like stitch down, Norwegian welts.
One with starts with a V and it's
Vlestrand and
Yeah, I
something.
can't pronounce
I
it
don't
either.
know. But those are you'll find those from like the Northampton kind of boot makers, and they'll have storm welts.
Right.
All of those kind of welts are basically made to weather serious water kind of situations.
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine back on the forum, Chris. He's a fisherman. He works at Crockett and Jones, and he goes through, like, he fishes in those Crockett and Jones
He
storm
does?
welt
Wow.
boots, and he's out in the river in them.
Wow, serious.
So they're like legit kind of water boots.
Huh. That's good to know. I have bean boots.
Want to hear the rest? Listen to the full episode and many more other exclusive episodes over on our Patreon. Visit patreon.com/Blamo to sign up and join the Blam fam. You also get access to our exclusive members-only Slack group where we chat about this and a ton of other things. So head over to patreon.com/Blamo and we'll see you there.